Test, test, test. Hello there, YouTubers. It's the 28th of June, year 2025. Both at Australian Eastern Standard Time / Sydney time and local Beijing time. So as promised, during this live stream, I would like to talk about the topic whether God or I imagine God made a deal with Satan, the devil. Well, based on my own life experiences and my own interpretation of the Bible, namely the KJV / King James version of the Bible, which I nowadays tend to read and generally refer to as the pretty much the most authoritative, or I should say the most trustworthy scripture or scriptures. Yeah. So whenever when it when whenever it comes down, to trying to interpret, to understand, the meanings, the purpose of life, of things and people and entities, we tend to come across in life. It pretty much, inevitably brings out, the question as to whether God exists, or whether God created this whole highly advanced, highly sophisticated form of simulation, as we refer to we generally refer to as the matrix, or the world that we are currently residing in and kind of interacting with. Hey there, King. Welcome to my live stream and welcome to my channel. How are you holding up? So basically, yeah, I have come to a realization that God's love is not as unconditional as those pastors or preachers and evangelists tend to say it is. Since pretty much everything we, or everyone we come across in this world revolves around and evolves transactions or exchange of either materials or energy, or information, or goods and or services. And unfortunately, God himself is no exception. He created us, to as far as I can per- perceive and imagine, for several purposes and reasons. Reason number one, I suppose, um, God created human beings to impose and maintain to impose and maintain order. That is to say, to prevent entropy from 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 um, from running rampant and out of hand. If you happen to have a Bible, namely King James Version (KJV), if you go to I never I just a fair dis a fair dis this a fair this um disclaimer here. I never intend, and I never aim to make this live stream a debate, or or a sermon revolving around the you know theology, or what not. I would just give you guys my own interpretation based on my very own life experiences, and what I how I interpret the the Bible, and blah blah blah. So if you go to the first book of Moses, the book of Genesis, you will see that chapter one, and from chapter one, verse one, until verse um verse 16 or 17. You will see that in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light," and there was light, and blah blah blah. So, as you can see there, um, still kind of, as you can see there, God kind of created us, based on his strong de- strong desire to maintain order, so that the amount of entropy, or the amount of disorder goes out of hand, or at least so far as I can imagine. God kind of either need us, or strongly desire us to exist and suffer, so that he can kind of harvest, can continue to impose his will, his might onto his whole creation, the whole universe. um But is it really a simulation, though? Well, it can depend, on your own interpretation and perspective on, on on looking at such matter. Since everything we um everything here that exists within the scope of our discussion and analysis cannot go beyond the the theory of relativity here, since um well, say a certain remedy or a certain medication, even if say they assume they well, in theory they treat similar, highly similar, if not completely identical um, illnesses or symptoms, namely, say, depression or anxiety. It's say a certain medication that is supposed to treat severe depression may work on someone, but it may fail to work on someone else. And say, another example here. Um, Marriage may or may not work on on a man, or or on another. So does going MGTOW. You say, even if you perceive going MGTOW as something cool, something highly liberating to do, to commit and stay committed to doing for for the rest of your life. Maybe later you will find it um boring, either boring or futile, or even deep depressing to go further. So it depends, in a nutshell, it whether the world we are currently residing in and interacting with can be considered a simulation, heavily and largely de- depends on your perspective or scope, or um, area of emphasis of discussion and analysis. But largely, so far as I can perceive and interpret, yes, the world is a highly advanced, highly sophisticated form of simulation, and sometimes, I should say, more or less, we tend to kind of run into or bump into some sort of glitch, or glitches in the matrix that we can't that we can't explain or come to a thorough and um, convincing explanation based on the existing scientific principles and discoveries. Yeah, say sometimes sometimes we can see some, say, some UFOs, some sort of optical illusions, or weather phenomenon, or weather phenomena that kind of seem to defy, or totally con- contravene logic and scientific um, explanations. say, well, UFO is a a kind of a lame, rather lame example. I can give, since I didn't really run or bump into or come across many so-called glitches in the matrix. So yeah, well, I suppose, well, I beg your pardon for getting sidetracked, but yeah. So back to dreams that come to fruition are one of the examples. Yeah, I'd say, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe say pre cognition dreams, say certain phenomenon of deja vu might also um count as another example of say glitch in the matrix that defy or contravene or contradict logic. Yeah, or fundamental scientific principles or fundamental universal constants. Yeah. So yeah, back to the main topic of this live stream. If you turn turn to um yeah turn to the gospel according to Saint Luke, chapter 4. Yeah, chapter 4, verses 6 to 7. Yeah, that's a scene. That's two paragraphs that depict Satan um tempting Jesus to worship him, saying, and the devil said unto him, all this power will I give thee, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will, I give it. If thou therefore wilt worship me, all shall be done. So yeah, as you can see, the world apparently has been handed handed over to Satan, the devil, and some people even begin to claim that God equates the devil slash Satan. Some even I from time to time, from at least occasionally suspect that God and Satan, God and devil seem to sit on the opposing sides of the same coin. Well, if you also take into account of the fact that God himself is a spirit, and Satan of course he or it is also falls into the category of spiritual or non physical, beg your pardon, non physical entities. If you take such perspective into consideration, then yeah, in some sense, God and the devil / the Satan are the same, but vastly different, in magnitude and scale. Since well, at least say Satan can only impose or enforce its will or its willpower and might on planet Earth, on humanity only. It does not seem to have any say in in realms beyond planet Earth. Say, well, that that's assuming you yeah, you go to Mars or Jupiter or Neptune, you won't see all those violence, all those betrayals, and all those chaos that tend to occur to the that tend to occur to our that tend to occur in our daily lives as part of the norm, as part of the the earth daily, well, or global daily, in case there is some sort of highly curated or a, aggregate of daily from every corner of planet Earth. Yeah, beg your pardon for getting sidetracked again. So yeah, on the other hand, I like I've said in one of my previous videos, well, pretty much exactly, exactly 1 year ago, I said, I've stopped simping for life and for God. That, however, does not necessarily equate to forfeiting faith in Jesus, in God. No, I've on the contrary, I just begin to come to a realization or a new level of knowledge, and or I should say enlightenment or awakening, that we should stop treating God as someone who loves you unconditionally. But that on the other hand, still um, does not negate the fact that every now and then we should be grateful for for still having a roof over our heads, for still having food on the table, for being still able to fall asleep and stay asleep for a good 7 to 8 hours. Well, in my case, I tend to just stay asleep for you know most recently 6.5 to 7 hours, and then more often than not, I tend to you know you know more often than not, some urine will tend to wake me up, and then I will have to go to the bathroom and shake my hands with the president or the prime minister, and blah blah blah. Yeah. So in that sense, we do not really have I should say I do not believe that we humans have the absolute free will to do whatever we wish and think whatever we want. More or less, something else that we can't see or perceive or touch with our five senses pulls the strings and runs the show behind the scene. And some of you might argue against existence of God. Say some of you might say, some of you might contradict my what I've said, what I've outlined so far about God. Say that if God exists, then why can't we see him, or why can't we you know touch him or shake hands with him? Well, first of all, you will need to take another fact into consideration, that we only have five senses, five fundamental senses that allow us to sense or perceive those stimuli that occur in the physical world. We can't see, nor can we touch our own thoughts. And though I so far as I've heard, some scientists back in Japan kind of introduced or kind of developed a prototype machine that can somehow visualize dreams by say by pro, pro, projecting certain areas of human brains and frontal lobe that become activated onto an LED screen, and then use all those pixels to form some basic, highly basic, highly rudimentary visual representation that kind of um, you know visualize or replicate what a dreamer sees when he or she has a dream, while asleep. I don't know, the specifics, other than a single video on YouTube that I watched maybe nearly a decade ago. So I don't really know exactly how such project goes, maybe they are now able to kind of replicate and even record dreams. But I don't know for sure. Maybe not. But you have to come to an understanding and come to terms with this simple fact that we can't. There are certain entities, certain things that exist beyond the physical realm, which we can't touch, and nor accurately describe or replicate. That says it is still technically impossible to to think in someone else's shoes slash to live someone else's lives and see the whole picture of what one has or someone else has undergone or been through. And hence I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. Yeah, but that one point, one, I suppose, one sort of not exactly explicit, but rather implicit or tacit evidence that supports, that at least implicitly suggests that some sort of spiritual entity, namely God, still runs the the whole show, the whole freak show that continues to carry on planet shit Earth. And on the other hand, we live in a three-dimensional world, at least on planet Earth. I can't say the same, for for the realm, say for the the entire universe, since as far as we know, the whole universe is pretty much empty, you know despite the fact that there are literally countless stars, galaxies, not just Andromeda, not just the Milky Way, that fill the whole universe. But you must take into account this you know between each and every celestial body, namely a planet or a star, there exists a huge amount of void, a huge amount of vacuum. And you know and not to mention that the vast amount of dark 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 materials, dark energy that scientists, or namely astronomers, have theorized and seem to exist beyond the observable universe, as far as we know. So that's I beg your pardon for getting more digressed and sidetracked. But on the other hand, according to the Bible, based on according to what Jesus says, namely, in the book of Revelation, I'll just refer to several most prominent, most well-known verses from the book of Revelation, saying what Jesus says, or saying what Jesus, or whom Jesus he says he is. Revelation chapter 1 verse 11. verses 10 to 11. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book and send it unto the seven churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto um some how to pronounce this, unto Sim 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 Sinner or Sinner, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. Yeah, so just this is just one one most famous verse from the book of Revelation. Well, at least pointing to what Jesus says he is and who he says he is. He Dad says God is limitless, is something infinite. So how can we and that brings out another question that raises another question. How can we, being something finite, being something with only a highly limited range of senses and methods of perception, see God in this realm, and how and how can God physically manifest in this realm where we only have three fundamental dimensions to to um to contain him. So that will be scientifically and physically impossible to contain someone or something who pretty much exists beyond this dimension or physical realm. So yeah, again, do not do not again, I do not intend or aim to make this live stream a sermon or or a debate revolving as to whether God exists or not. I just give you my own thoughts and interpretations here and there. And on the other hand, to try to come to a deeper and clearer picture of understanding as to whether God did make a deal or several deals with Satan, or with, say, or in other words, with the evil part, the wicked part, the ruthless part of his own very existence. Since Satan himself or itself stands from God. So I suppose you can say, in some sense, I beg your pardon, that that God rules this shitty world using Satan, or you can simply say Satan runs this whole world And also, you may say that God, in some sense, is something, evil, and ruthless. Well, at least, based on what he did, in the old, throughout the, whole accounts, throughout the whole historical chrono, throughout the whole historical accounts, according to the Old Testaments, in some parts in a chronological order, and in some other parts in a non chronological order, and blah blah blah. Yeah. So I beg your pardon, but yeah. So in conclusion, in a nutshell, yes, in some sense, I believe, yes, God did at least, make a deal or two with Satan, the devil, to in order to perpetuate this pathetic and hostile um, existence, creation on planet Earth. In and he also kind of, either, needs humanity to suffer and continue to live in the way, in the fashion, as we are today, in the present. You know, either because he needs us to live like this, or he strongly wants us to live like this, where we just, where, in a way that he, in a way that he per beg your pardon, in a way that he programmed us, to just, eat shit, work, sleep, eat shit, work, sleep. Sometimes have sex, bang, 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 and just yeah. But again, let me please allow me to throw in a bit of humor here. I'm not programmed to make that kind of qualified judgment. My code is limited to information and simple interaction simulations. Yeah, so yeah. Um, but in any regards, in any event, you might think that, well, since there, everything, goes beyond our, or at least pretty much everything goes beyond our range of um, control and free will, then why not just, commit the act of self deletion, slash, the s s word. No, I'm not, um you know encouraging, us, you guys, or us, to kill ourselves, to say, to end, this shitty life, no matter how pathetic, how hostile, how boring, how depressing it gets. Since, more, I believe, more or less, the act of self deletion more or less contravenes, the natural order, the natural the fundamental constant of the universe. And for your own damn sake, another reason we shouldn't kill ourselves is that well, since life is a simulation, a highly sophisticated, highly advanced, form of simulation. Why not, play along and enjoy the views and just enjoy whatever you know entertainment form in entertainment and ways to keep ourselves into that God or Satan or life itself or the universe throws at our way. That's one more reason I give you to continue live this shit life. And also bear this in mind. So long as you still have a roof over your head, you at least have one thing to feel grateful for. And you know a roof over your head will at least in some sense guarantee that you will have another chance to make a major comeback in your life, in our life. And though I don't quite look forward to my twilight years, where I kind of anticipate to die alone, to suffer from the repercussions of pretty much choosing not to reproduce throughout the rest of my life. But in any regards, yeah. So in conclusion, God, as far as I believe and perceive, God more or less did make a deal with Satan, the devil, so that he can continue to harvest, to harvest energy and maintain maintain order on a cosmic scale and magnitude. While we live our daily lives by performing and following our routines of eating, consuming food, and defecating and having sex and having to work some jobs or some work or some side gigs or side hustles, blah blah blah. And so yeah, more or less, God either strongly wants humanity to continue to live like this, or he needs us to continue to live like this, so that he can impose his will. Right? And in order to achieve maintain so doing, he more or less did make a deal or two with Satan the devil. Yeah. So so that's my own interpretation. I can be wrong, so do not do not take it too seriously. And in case you don't, just either listen to or watch this live stream as a form of entertainment, to kill your boredom, to kill some time, and yeah, and in case should you find this live stream, this video, this live filming session, useful, if not also enjoyable in the meantime, please consider smashing that like button um, and becoming one of my most beloved patrons and receive monthly and exclusive perks. So yeah, I hope I sincerely hope that you guys are doing well, and yeah, so yeah, in any event, thank you very much for being with me to the end of this live stream, and thank you very much for your kind replies and comments and likes and support. Um, despite all the odds stacked up against us men. And yeah, so if God's still willing, or if life or the universe still willing, I shall see you guys next time on YouTube, on Patreon, BitChute, Rumble.com, MGTOW.tv. And yeah, so stay out of trouble, stay safe, and now go and take care of business. So yeah, take care and stay out of trouble. And cheers. Bye.